Imagine having everything: unimaginable wealth, limitless luxury, and the world at your feet. But what if it was all a gilded prison? Born into the vast Woolworth fortune, Barbara Hutton was once the envy of the world. Yet, despite her billions, she found herself abandoned by love, ravaged by addiction, and alone in her final years. For Barbara, her fortune became both a shield and a weapon. With 7 marriages, millions spent on fleeting affections, and a life spiraling into a self-destructive abyss, she proved that even the richest can't buy happiness. This is the tragic tale of the Woolworth heiress who died alone. Chapter 1. A wealthy prison. Born into one of the wealthiest families in America, Barbara Hutton's life was set to be a fairy tale. But was it? November 14th, 1912. The day Barbara Hutton entered the world, she inherited more than just life. She inherited an empire. Her grandfather, Frank Winfield Woolworth, had built a retail dynasty that stretched across America. 5 and dime stores bearing his name dotted every major city. By the time Barbara took her first breath, the Woolworth fortune was estimated at over $65 million. In today's money, that's more than $1 billion. The Hutton Mansion on Fifth Avenue stood as a monument to excess. 70 rooms sprawled across 5 floors. Crystal chandeliers hung in every hallway. Marble imported from Italy covered the floors. Persian rugs worth thousands lined the corridors. But inside those walls, something was missing. Barbara's mother, Edna Woolworth Hutton, was beautiful. Society columns called her elegant. Photographs showed a woman with porcelain skin and distant eyes. But beauty couldn't mask the darkness growing inside her. Edna suffered from what doctors then called melancholia. Today, we'd recognize it as severe depression. She spent days locked in her bedroom. The servants whispered. The family looked away. Young Barbara learned early that money bought silence, not comfort. Her nursery was filled with dolls from Paris, music boxes from Switzerland, toy horses with real leather saddles. She had everything a child could want, except the one thing she needed. Her mother's arms remained empty. Her father, Franklin Laws Hutton, was always somewhere else. Business meetings, social engagements, anywhere but home. The little girl with golden curls would wander those 70 rooms alone. Her footsteps echoed on marble floors. Servants bowed, but never held her. Governesses taught, but never loved her. At night, she'd press her ear against her mother's door, listening for sounds of life. Sometimes she heard crying. Sometimes nothing at all. By age 4, Barbara understood a terrible truth. Wealth could fill a house with treasures, but leave it empty of warmth. The Woolworth fortune, which was meant to protect her, had already begun building walls around her heart. Those walls would grow taller with every passing year. They would keep the world out, and they would keep Barbara trapped inside. Her childhood became a series of beautiful, lonely moments. Birthday parties with 50 guests and no friends. Christmas mornings with mountains of presents and no one to share them with. Summer vacations in mansions by the sea where the waves were her only company. The servants called her the little princess. But princesses in fairy tales have someone to rescue them. Barbara had only her inheritance. What happens to a child raised in such isolation? What grows in the space where love should be? Barbara would spend her entire life trying to answer those questions, and the answers would destroy her. Chapter 2. A Father's Shadow. At the age of 5, Barbara lost her father, but the damage was already done long before that. May 10th, 1917. Edna Woolworth Hutton climbed to the roof of her Fifth Avenue mansion. She was 33 years old, beautiful, wealthy beyond measure, and completely broken. She jumped. The fall killed her instantly. Barbara was 4 years old. They didn't let Barbara see the body. They didn't explain what happened. The adults spoke in hushed tones about an accident, a terrible tragedy, anything but the truth. But children know. They feel the vibrations of horror that adults try to hide. Barbara knew her mother was gone, and somewhere deep inside, she knew why. Franklin Hutton, Barbara's father, retreated into work. Grief was not something men of his class displayed. He threw himself into managing the Woolworth estate, board meetings, investment decisions, anything to avoid the empty rooms where his wife's ghost lingered. Barbara saw him less and less. When they did meet, he looked at her with eyes full of pain. She reminded him too much of Edna. The inheritance grew larger. Edna's share of the Woolworth fortune passed to Barbara. Trustees managed the money. Lawyers drew up documents. At 5 years old, Barbara Hutton was worth over $28 million. The number meant nothing to her. She would have traded every penny for one more day with her mother, or one genuine smile from her father. Franklin remarried within 2 years. His new wife was younger, prettier, less complicated. She had no interest in raising another woman's damaged child. Barbara was sent away to boarding schools, first one in Connecticut, then another in California. The pattern would repeat throughout her childhood. Whenever she became too much trouble, too sad, too needy, they sent her somewhere else. At school, the other girls knew who she was, the Woolworth Heiress, the poor little rich girl. They either fawned over her, hoping for favors, or tormented her, jealous of her wealth. Real friendship became impossible. How could anyone love her for herself when her fortune preceded her everywhere? Barbara developed her first coping mechanism at age 7. She stopped eating. If she could control nothing else in her life, she could control her body. The pounds fell away. Teachers noticed, doctors were consulted, but no one understood that the hunger was emotional, not physical. She was starving for affection, not food. Her father visited occasionally. Awkward conversations in headmistress offices, promises to spend more time together that were never kept. He'd leave expensive gifts and disappear again. A pearl necklace for her 8th birthday. A diamond bracelet for her 9th. Each gift was a substitute for presence. Each gem sparkled with absence. The psychological damage was invisible, but profound. Barbara learned that people leave, that love is conditional, that no amount of money can make someone stay. These lessons calcified in her young mind, becoming the foundation of every relationship she'd ever have. She would spend millions trying to prove these lessons wrong. She would fail every time. By age 10, Barbara Hutton was one of the richest children in the world. She was also one of the loneliest. The mansion on Fifth Avenue had been sold. Her father lived in a new house with his new family. Barbara belonged nowhere. She was a floating asset, managed by trustees, educated by strangers, loved by no one. The fortune that was supposed to protect her had become her cage, and she was still just a child, learning to rattle the bars. Chapter 3, The Golden Cage. With her inheritance came fame, but not the affection she yearned for. 1930, Barbara Hutton turned 18. The trust fund restrictions lifted. She gained full control of her inheritance. The amount was staggering, $42 million. In the middle of the Great Depression, while millions stood in breadlines, Barbara Hutton became the richest teenager in America. The media descended like vultures. Newspaper photographers camped outside her home. Society columnists chronicled her every move. They called her the $1 Million Baby, the poor little rich girl, the golden girl. She was photographed at nightclubs, at charity balls, stepping out of limousines. Her face sold newspapers. Her fortune sold fantasies. America was starving. Unemployment had reached 25%. Families lost their homes. Children went hungry. And here was Barbara Hutton, barely out of adolescence, with more money than most people could imagine in 10 lifetimes. The public was fascinated and furious in equal measure. They wanted to see how she'd spend it. They wanted to see her fall. Barbara's debut into society was orchestrated like a military campaign. Debutante balls, charity galas, introductions to European nobility. She wore gowns that cost thousands of dollars, jewels that had belonged to empresses. Her coming out party at the Ritz-Carlton cost $60,000. That's over $1 million today for a single party, while the country collapsed around her. But beneath the diamonds and silk, Barbara was still searching for something money couldn't buy. She wanted to be loved for herself, not her fortune. An impossible dream. Everyone who approached her wanted something. Social climbers wanted access. Businessmen wanted investments. Society matrons wanted reflected glory. And men wanted her money. The suitors arrived in waves, counts and barons from bankrupt European estates, Hollywood actors between films, playboys with expensive tastes and empty wallets. They brought flowers and poetry. They whispered sweet promises. And Barbara, desperate for affection, believed them. She wanted so badly to believe that someone could love her. Not the Woolworth Heiress, just Barbara. Her first serious romance was with a Baltic prince, and he was handsome, charming, and completely broke. His family castle was crumbling. His title was worthless outside of Europe. But he called Barbara beautiful. He held her hand and made her feel wanted. She fell hard. Within months, she was buying him cars, paying his debts, funding his lifestyle. The prince accepted it all with a smile. When a wealthier prospect appeared, he vanished. Barbara was heartbroken, but not surprised. Some part of her had known it was a transaction. She'd been buying his affection the same way she bought everything else. The realization didn't stop her. It only made her more desperate. If she couldn't earn love through her personality, perhaps she could purchase it through generosity. The pattern was set. She threw parties that cost more than most people earned in a year. She gave gifts worth thousands to casual acquaintances. She picked up tabs at nightclubs, paid for friends' vacations, bought jewelry for women she barely knew. And still, she felt empty. The more she spent, the lonelier she became. People surrounded her constantly, yet she was always alone. The press loved it. Every extravagant purchase made headlines. Every romance was front-page news. Barbara Hutton buying a pearl necklace for $50,000 while families lost their farms. Barbara Hutton sailing to Europe while Americans rode the rails looking for work. The anger grew. Death threats arrived at her door, letters filled with rage and desperation. But what could she do? Give away the fortune? It wouldn't solve the depression. Stop spending? The money would just sit in banks. She was trapped by her wealth, paralyzed by privilege. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered, that maybe she deserved the hatred. Maybe this was punishment for her mother's death. Maybe this was the price of being a Woolworth. The golden cage grew smaller every day. Fame brought scrutiny, not love. Wealth brought suitors, not partners. Barbara had everything the world said mattered, and it meant absolutely nothing. The question haunted her. If money couldn't buy happiness, what could? She was about to spend the next 40 years and several fortunes trying to find out. Chapter 4. A series of broken marriages. 7 marriages, and each ended in heartbreak. Was Barbara doomed to never find love? 1933. Barbara met Alexis Mandavani at a party in Paris. He was everything she'd been taught to want: European royalty, a Georgian prince, tall, dark, handsome. He spoke 5 languages. He knew all the right people. He was also completely bankrupt. The Mandavani brothers were known throughout European high society. They called themselves princes. They hunted American heiresses like game. Alexis had already married and divorced one wealthy woman. He'd perfected the art of the romance. He knew exactly what a lonely heiress wanted to hear, and he knew how to make her pay for it. The courtship was a masterclass in manipulation. Alexis sent flowers every day, dozens of roses, orchids from exotic locations. Each bouquet came with a card, handwritten notes professing devotion. Barbara kept every card, read them over and over, believed every word. No one had ever pursued her like this. Not for her title or her social standing, or so she thought. They married in June. Barbara was 21. The wedding was small by her standards, only a few dozen guests. But the cost was astronomical. The engagement ring alone cost $100,000, a single diamond the size of a grape. Barbara wore a dress that cost $10,000 and was photographed once before being packed away forever. The honeymoon took them across Europe, Venice, Monaco, the French Riviera. Alexis charged everything to Barbara's accounts: hotel suites, champagne, gambling debts at Monte Carlo casinos. In 3 weeks, he spent $60,000. Barbara didn't notice or didn't care. She was happy, or thought she was. The distinction mattered less than the feeling. The marriage was doomed from the start. Alexis wanted money. Barbara wanted love. Neither got what they wanted. He demanded an allowance of $1 million a year. She gave it to him. He wanted a polo stable. She bought him 20 horses worth $200,000. He wanted cars. She purchased 5: Bugattis, Duesenbergs, and luxury vehicles that cost more than houses. He wanted clothes. She sent him to the finest tailors in London. $40,000 for suits he'd wear once. Houses in Paris, London, and New York followed. Each property required staff, maintenance, furnishing. The costs spiraled. Barbara signed every check, every invoice, every bill, and with each signature, a small part of her died. She knew what she was doing, buying time with a man who didn't love her. But time with him was better than time alone, or so she told herself. The fight started within months. Alexis wanted more freedom, more money, more of everything except more of Barbara. He disappeared for days, came back smelling of perfume that wasn't hers, offered no explanations. Barbara didn't ask. Asking meant hearing answers she couldn't bear. So she stayed silent and wrote more checks. They separated after 2 years. The divorce cost Barbara $2 million in settlement. plus the $1 million annual allowance she'd been paying, plus the cars, the horses, the houses. In total, she'd spent over $4 million on a marriage that lasted 24 months. That's over $5,500 per day. For the privilege of being ignored, cheated on, and eventually abandoned. Alexis remarried within weeks, another heiress, another fortune to plunder. Barbara was left alone again, older, poorer, and no wiser. The newspapers had a field day. The poor little rich girl loses prince. Headlines mocked her pain. Columnists speculated about her judgment. The public ate it up. Another chapter in the ongoing tragedy of Barbara Hutton. Marriage, too, came fast, too fast. Barbara couldn't bear the loneliness. Count Kurt von Haugwitz Reventlow appeared like a rescue. Another title. Another bankrupt nobleman. He was Danish, cold and calculating. Everything Alexis wasn't. Serious where Alexis was charming. Disciplined where Alexis was reckless. Barbara mistook these differences for compatibility. They weren't. They were just different flavors of dysfunction. They married in 1935. The wedding was grander than the first. 200 guests. A ceremony that cost $90,000. Barbara wore a different expensive dress, received a different expensive ring, repeated different vows that would prove equally meaningless. This time, she was determined to make it work. She'd learn from her mistakes, be a better wife, make smarter choices, all the things she told herself while ignoring the obvious red flags. She tried to be the perfect wife. She entertained his friends even though they bored her. She funded his lifestyle even though it drained her accounts. She adapted to his routines, his preferences, his demands. She became smaller to make room for him. It didn't help. Kurt wanted a wife the way a businessman wants an asset, functional, productive, valuable. Barbara was a person. The mismatch was fundamental. She gave him a son, Lance, in 1936. The pregnancy was difficult. Barbara's anorexia had weakened her body. She weighed barely 100 pounds when she conceived. The doctors were horrified. Pregnancy required nutrition. Barbara couldn't provide it. She tried. For the baby's sake, she tried to eat. But decades of disordered eating don't reverse in 9 months. The birth was traumatic. 30 hours of labor, complications. Doctors warned her not to have more children. Her body couldn't survive it. But she had a son. Finally, someone who would love her unconditionally. Or so she thought. She held Lance in the hospital and felt something she'd never felt before. Pure, uncomplicated love. This tiny person needed her, not her money, just her. It was the most powerful feeling of her life. And it terrified her, because she had no idea how to be a mother, no model to follow. Her own mother had killed herself, and her father had abandoned her emotionally. What did she know about nurturing a child? Kurt had other ideas about Lance. He saw the boy as an heir to the Woolworth fortune, a valuable asset to be managed, controlled. Kurt didn't bond with his son out of affection. He bonded with him out of strategy. Lance was leverage, a tool to extract more money from Barbara. And when the marriage inevitably crumbled, Lance would be the prize in the divorce. The marriage lasted 6 years, longer than the first, but no happier. Kurt was emotionally abusive in ways that left no visible marks. He criticized Barbara constantly, her weight, her spending, her mothering. Nothing she did was right. She tried harder, lost more weight, spent more money trying to please him, became more anxious about Lance. The harder she tried, the more Kurt found to criticize. It was a game she couldn't win, because the rules changed whenever she got close to winning. When they finally divorced in 1941, Kurt fought Barbara for custody, not out of love for Lance, out of desire for control and revenge. The courts were brutal. Barbara's lifestyle was examined under a microscope. Her spending habits, her drinking, her history of failed relationships, her mental health, her physical health. Everything was used against her. She was painted as an unfit mother, a spoiled heiress who couldn't care for herself, let alone a child. The custody battle destroyed her. She lost primary custody. Lance would spend most of his childhood with his father in Europe. Barbara could visit, have him for summers. Limited access to her own child. She was devastated. The one relationship she thought was unconditional had been taken from her. Weaponized. Used to hurt her in the deepest way possible. She'd lost her son to the same greed and cruelty that had poisoned every other relationship in her life. The divorce settlement cost her $4 million, plus ongoing child support payments of $50,000 a year, plus legal fees that topped $1 million, in total over $5 million. And the cost in emotional damage was incalculable. Barbara would spend the rest of her life trying to repair her relationship with Lance. She'd fail. Some damage can't be undone. But Barbara didn't learn. Couldn't learn. Because learning meant accepting that love was impossible for someone like her. That her fortune had made genuine connection unattainable. That every relationship would be corrupted by money. She couldn't accept that. So she tried again, and again, and again, each time hoping the next one would be different, each time paying dearly when it wasn't. Cary Grant was different. He was marriage number 3, a Hollywood star, self-made, genuinely wealthy from his own work. Barbara thought maybe this time would be real. Grant had money, fame, success achieved through talent, not inheritance. He didn't need her fortune, or so she believed. They married in 1942. For a moment, it seemed possible. Grant was charming, attentive. He made her laugh, something no one had done in years. They were photographed together constantly, the beautiful couple, the heiress, and the movie star. It looked perfect from the outside. It always did. The problems were private. But fame and wealth don't equal emotional maturity. Grant was charming on screen and distant in person. He had his own demons, his own childhood traumas. He'd grown up poor. His mother had been institutionalized when he was young. He'd built a whole persona to hide the damaged child underneath. Barbara recognized it. She was doing the same thing. Two broken people trying to fix each other with marriage vows. It doesn't work. It never works. The marriage lasted 3 years. They divorced in 1945. This time, Barbara asked for nothing. She gave Grant a settlement of $1 million. She paid him to leave. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who didn't need her money took it anyway. Because it was there. Because she offered. Because refusing would have been awkward. The transaction completed. Another marriage bought and paid for. Marriages 4, 5, 6, and 7 blur together. The faces change. The names accumulate. But the pattern remains identical. Prince Igor Trubetskoy, Russian title, American playboy. Marriage lasted less than a year. Cost over $2 million. Porfirio Rubirosa, Dominican diplomat, international playboy. Marriage lasted 73 days. Cost over $2.5 million. Baron Gottfried von Kram, German tennis champion. Marriage lasted a year. Cost $1 million. Prince Pierre d'Oenvin na Champassac, Laotian royalty. Marriage lasted a year, yet cost unknown but substantial. Porfirio Rubirosa was perhaps the most blatant. He was known throughout high society as a professional husband. He married rich women, took their money, and moved on. He'd been married to Doris Duke before Barbara, another heiress, another fortune extracted. Rubirosa didn't even pretend to love Barbara. He was honest about the transaction. She knew what she was buying. 73 days of companionship, the illusion of marriage, someone to be with at parties, in photographs, in bed. The price was over $2.5 million. That's over $34,000 per day, the most expensive rental in history. Barbara paid it gladly. By the end, Barbara had spent over $20 million on her marriages. $20 million on the dream of being loved. Each husband had taken a piece of her fortune and a piece of her soul. She'd given everything, received nothing in return. 7 tries, 7 failures, in 7 expensive lessons that she never quite learned. The poor little rich girl had bought 7 princes and died a pauper in spirit. Chapter 5. The Cost of Affection. She spent millions on her relationships, but could money really buy love? Barbara's checkbook became her love language. When words failed, when emotions overwhelmed her, when loneliness threatened to swallow her whole, she opened her purse, and the amounts were staggering. For her second husband, Count Reventlow, she purchased a townhouse in London. Cost $700,000. She bought him a racing yacht. Cost $300,000. She funded his motor racing hobby. Cars, mechanics, travel expenses, over $500,000. And when he complained about the quality of his wardrobe, she flew him to Savile Row and spent $40,000 on suits for one man's closet. But the houses and yachts were just the beginning. Barbara's real spending came in the form of jewelry, not for herself, for the people she hoped would love her. She bought diamond cufflinks for husbands, emerald bracelets for friends, ruby rings for acquaintances who showed her the slightest kindness. Each piece was an investment in affection. Each gem sparkled with desperate hope. Her friend, society columnist Elsa Maxwell, received gifts worth over $200,000 over their friendship. Pearl earrings, gold cigarette cases, fur coats, weekend trips to Paris on Barbara's dime. Maxwell wrote kindly about Barbara in her columns. The friendship was purchased, maintained through generosity, and ultimately hollow. When Barbara's money ran low, Maxwell's kindness evaporated. The pattern extended beyond romantic relationships. Barbara collected people the way others collected art. She'd meet someone charming at a party. They'd share a conversation. She'd feel a momentary connection, and she'd try to cement that feeling through gifts. A stranger who made her laugh received a car. An acquaintance who listened to her problems found themselves on an all-expenses-paid vacation. The price of an evening's companionship could run into tens of thousands. Her staff became the recipients of extraordinary generosity. Maids received fur coats worth more than they'd earn in a year. Chauffeurs drove home in new cars as Christmas bonuses. Her personal secretary received an apartment in Manhattan as a gift. Barbara confused employment with friendship. She thought if she was generous enough, the people around her would care about her, not just her money, her. The reality was darker. Every gift created a power imbalance. Every generous gesture was a subtle form of control. If Barbara gave you a house, you owed her. If she paid for your lifestyle, you belonged to her. The people around her weren't friends, they were dependents. And dependents rarely bite the hand that feeds them, even when that hand is smothering you. Barbara's son Lance became another victim of this transactional love. Unable to see him regularly due to custody arrangements, she showered him with presents. For his 10th birthday, she sent him a car. A child's car, custom built, but still worth $15,000. For his 13th, she bought him a horse farm, 20 acres, stables, riding equipment. Cost $250,000. And she was trying to buy a relationship with her own child. Lance learned quickly. If he called and asked for something, it appeared. New clothes, new toys, trips, spending money. His father encouraged it. Every dollar Barbara sent to Lance was a dollar that proved she loved her son more through money than presents. The boy grew up understanding that affection had a price tag. That need could be monetized. The cycle continued into another generation. The psychological toll was immense. Barbara knew what she was doing. Late at night, alone in her mansion, she understood that she was purchasing companionship. But the alternative was unbearable. The silence, the emptiness, the crushing weight of isolation. Better to buy fake friendship than face real loneliness. Better to write checks than acknowledge the truth. No one was there for her. They were there for what she could give them. Her accountants watched in horror as the fortune dwindled. $20 million on marriages, another $5 million on jewelry for friends and acquaintances, $3 million on houses and cars for people she barely knew. The Woolworth inheritance, once $65 million, was being systematically destroyed through desperate purchases of human connection. And still, Barbara felt empty. Every gift created a moment of warmth, a smile, a thank you, a brief illusion of being valued. Then the moment passed. The recipient left. The silence returned, and Barbara reached for her checkbook again. The cycle was addictive. The cost was incalculable. The outcome was inevitable. You cannot buy love. You can only rent the appearance of it, and the lease always expires. Chapter 6. The height of her wealth. At the height of her wealth, Barbara's world was full of promises, but each promise led to more emptiness. 1948. Barbara Hutton owned properties on 3 continents, a palace in Tangier, an apartment in Paris overlooking the Seine, a mansion in Mexico City, a penthouse in New York, a villa in London. Each home was staffed with servants, each closet filled with designer clothes, each room a monument to excess. The Tangier Palace alone cost over $1 million to purchase and another $500,000 to renovate. She installed marble from the same quarries that supplied the Taj Mahal, imported silk wallpaper from China, commissioned furniture from the finest craftsmen in Europe. The bedroom featured a bed that had once belonged to a Moroccan sultan, cost $75,000 for somewhere to sleep. Her jewelry collection was valued at over $8 million. She owned the Marie Antoinette diamonds, a jade necklace that had belonged to Chinese emperors, emeralds the size of quail eggs, rubies that glowed like frozen fire. Each piece had a story. Each story involved empires, queens, or dynasties, and each piece sat in a vault, barely worn, almost forgotten. The parties she threw became legendary. In Paris, she hosted a ball for 300 guests. The champagne bill alone was $20,000. She flew in orchids from Thailand to decorate the ballroom. The cost, $8,000 for flowers that would die in 3 days. Guests received party favors worth hundreds of dollars each. Gold cigarette lighters, crystal perfume bottles, silver compacts. The evening cost over $100,000 for a party. But while Barbara's wealth was at its peak, her body was in crisis. The anorexia that had started at age 7 had never stopped. Now, at 36, she weighed barely 90 pounds. Her bones protruded. Her skin hung loose. Doctors warned her constantly, "Eat, gain weight. Your body is shutting down." She couldn't or wouldn't. Food was control. Starvation was the one thing she could manage in a life that felt utterly out of control. Pills became another form of control. Benzedrine to stay awake, Seconal to sleep, Dexedrine to suppress appetite, Nembutal to calm anxiety. Her bathroom cabinet became a pharmacy, bottles lined up in neat rows, each labeled, each promising relief from something: pain, sadness, fear, consciousness. She took them in combinations, handfuls at a time, chasing oblivion. The addiction happened gradually. At first, the pills were prescribed, legitimate medications from legitimate doctors. But as her tolerance grew, she needed more. Doctors who asked questions were replaced with doctors who didn't. She had money. Money bought cooperation. Soon she had multiple prescriptions from multiple physicians, none of them knowing what the others prescribed, all of them willing to help for a fee. Her days became a blur. Wake at noon, pills to function. Lunch she wouldn't eat, more pills. Afternoons spent shopping, spending money on things she didn't need. Evenings at parties, drinking, taking more pills. Nights lying awake and staring at ceilings in mansions that felt like tombs. More pills, sleep, wake, repeat. The people around her noticed but said nothing. Servants whispered among themselves but never confronted her. Friends expressed concern in vague terms but never intervened. Her husbands used her addiction as ammunition in divorces but never tried to help. Everyone watched. No one acted. Because acting might mean losing access to the money. Her weight dropped to 85 pounds. Photographs from this period show a skeletal figure in expensive clothes, hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, bones visible through silk. She looked like death wearing diamonds. The press noticed. Headlines screamed about her health. The poor little rich girl is dying. The $1 million baby is wasting away. But the concern was performative. They wanted the story. They wanted the tragedy. They didn't want to help. Barbara's fortune was still massive, still enough to buy anything, except health, except happiness, except escape from herself. She was at the height of her wealth and the depth of her despair. Every possession was a reminder of what she couldn't have. Every party was a celebration of emptiness. Every pill was a step closer to the edge. In Tangier, she'd wander her palace at night. 30 rooms of silence, servants asleep, guards at the gates. She'd walk through halls filled with priceless art and feel nothing. The beauty meant nothing. The luxury meant nothing. She was a ghost haunting her own life, rich beyond measure, empty beyond repair. The fortune that was supposed to protect her had become the thing destroying her, and she was powerless to stop it. What happens when you have everything and feel nothing? When every door is open, but you're too broken to walk through any of them? Barbara was finding out. The answers were written in prescription bottles and unpaid bills and mirrors she couldn't bear to look into. So the height of her wealth was the beginning of her end. Chapter 7. A Woman Alone. Despite her fortune and fame, Barbara ended her days in solitude, abandoned by all. 1960. Barbara Hutton was 48 years old. 5 of her 7 marriages were already behind her. The 6th was collapsing. Her son Lance, now 24, rarely spoke to her. Her fortune, once over 60 million, had been reduced to around 20 million. Still wealthy by any measure, still dying inside. The isolation had become physical. Her Tangier palace, once filled with guests and parties, sat empty. She'd fire servants in fits of paranoia, convinced they were stealing from her. Then she'd hire new ones, then fire them too. The turnover was constant. No one stayed long enough to know her. No one stayed long enough to care. Her health deteriorated rapidly. The anorexia and drug addiction had taken their toll. She'd suffered several heart attacks, minor ones at first, warning shots. Her doctors begged her to change, eat properly, stop the pills, rest. She'd nod and agree, then continue exactly as before. Control was all she had left. She wouldn't surrender it, even if it killed her. Friends from her youth had disappeared, dead, married, moved on. The society world that had once buzzed around her had found newer, younger heiresses to fascinate over. Barbara was old news, a cautionary tale, a relic from an earlier, more glamorous era. When she appeared at events now, people stared, not with admiration, with pity or disgust. The skeletal woman in clothes that hung off her frame, the poor little rich girl, had become the poor old rich woman. Her 6th marriage to Baron Gottfried von Kram ended in 1959. Another title, another European, another disaster. The settlement was relatively small this time, only $1 million. Barbara was learning economy, or running out of money. The Baron left quickly, no lingering, no pretense of affection, just signatures on papers and a check clearing. She retreated further into her palaces. Tangier became her primary residence. Morocco didn't judge her, didn't care about her scandals. She could disappear there, hide from the world's eyes. The palace had 40 rooms. She lived in 3 of them. The rest sat empty. Dust accumulated. Expensive furniture rotted in the humidity. Paintings worth thousands hung unwatched on walls. The pills increased. Her tolerance had grown so high that normal doses did nothing. She needed more, stronger, different combinations. She'd take uppers in the morning to function, downers at night to sleep, painkillers throughout the day to numb everything in between. Her bloodstream was a chemical soup. Her organs struggled to process the load. Lance visited occasionally, duty visits. He'd stay a few days, accept whatever gifts she offered, listen to her ramble about the past. Then he'd leave, back to his life, his friends, his world that didn't include his mother. Barbara would watch him go and feel the loneliness crash over her like a wave. Her only child. And he couldn't wait to escape her presence. She hired companions, professional friends. Women paid to keep her company, to listen to her stories, to pretend they cared. The arrangement was honest in its dishonesty. Everyone knew it was transactional. But at least there was someone in the room, someone to talk to, and even if they were watching the clock, counting hours until their shift ended. At night, the loneliness was unbearable. The palace was too big, too quiet. The silence pressed in from all sides. She'd take pills to sleep, but wake up at 3 in the morning, heart racing, panic choking her. The darkness felt alive, malevolent. She'd turn on every light in her rooms, blaze away the shadows, but the emptiness remained. Light can't fill a void. She started giving away possessions. Jewelry to strangers, art to servants, furniture to anyone who'd take it. Not out of generosity, out of desperation. The things meant nothing. They never had. She wanted them gone. Wanted the reminder of her wasted life removed from her sight. Piece by piece, the palace emptied. Piece by piece, Barbara disappeared. Her finances were a mess. She'd spent so freely for so long that tracking the money had become impossible. Multiple bank accounts, investments scattered across countries, properties she'd forgotten she owned. Her trustees tried to manage it, but Barbara would override their decisions. Spend money they'd tried to save, buy things on impulse, give away assets without telling anyone. The fortune was bleeding out, and Barbara didn't care. What was money to her now? What had it ever bought her? Husbands who left, friends who weren't friends, a son who couldn't love her. Things, empty, meaningless things that filled rooms, but not hearts. She'd have traded every penny for one genuine relationship. One person who wanted her, not her fortune. But that trade was impossible. The money was all she was. Take it away and nothing remained. The world forgot her. Newspapers stopped covering her. Photographers stopped following her. She was no longer newsworthy. Just another faded heiress in a foreign country, slowly dying. The fame that had once suffocated her now abandoned her completely. And in the silence of that abandonment, Barbara Hutton realized the terrible truth. She was alone. She'd always been alone. The money had guaranteed it. Chapter 8. The Ghosts of the Past. Every choice Barbara made echoed with the ghosts of past mistakes, leading her further into despair. The past wouldn't stay buried. It haunted Barbara's present like a curse she couldn't break. Late at night, in her empty palace, the ghosts came calling. Her mother's ghost was the loudest. Edna Woolworth Hutton, beautiful and broken, like standing on that rooftop. Barbara would dream about it, wake up screaming, see her mother falling. Over and over, the same moment replayed endlessly. And in the dreams, Barbara was there, watching, unable to save her, unable to look away. She'd wake drenched in sweat, reaching for the pills to make it stop. Psychiatrists had tried to help over the years. Multiple therapists, different approaches. They all arrived at the same conclusion. Barbara suffered from deep abandonment trauma. Her mother's suicide, her father's neglect, the endless parade of people who used her and left. It had created a wound that never healed. Every relationship picked at the scab. Every betrayal deepened the cut. But understanding the wound didn't heal it. Knowing why you're broken doesn't make you whole. Barbara understood perfectly. She could articulate her trauma with clarity. The lack of maternal love, the transactional nature of all her relationships, the curse of her fortune, she understood. And still, she repeated the same patterns. Knowledge without power to change. Her marriages haunted her. 7 failed attempts at love. 7 men who took pieces of her fortune and left pieces of her heart scattered behind them. She'd replay the moments, the wedding days full of hope, the The honeymoons where she believed this time would be different. The slow realization that it wasn't. The divorce proceedings. The settlements. The goodbyes. Alexis Mendivani died in a car crash in 1935, racing his sports car, the one Barbara had bought him, dead at 37. When she heard the news, Barbara felt nothing. Not grief, not satisfaction, just emptiness. The man who'd taken her first real hope of love had died, and she couldn't even summon an emotion. Cary Grant's ghost was different. He'd been the one she thought might be real, the self-made man who didn't need her money. They'd divorced, but remained on speaking terms. He'd call sometimes, check in. Those calls were torture. They reminded her of what might have been, if she'd been different, if he'd been different, if two broken people could have fixed each other instead of fracturing further. The worst ghost was her son. Not dead, just absent. Lance grew up angry. Angry at his mother for being weak. Angry at his father for being cruel. Angry at the fortune that defined his entire existence. He'd been passed between parents like property, used as a bargaining chip, watched his mother spiral into addiction and do nothing to stop it. How could he not be angry? Barbara tried to reconcile. Letters sent, gifts mailed, invitations extended. Lance responded politely, distantly. He had his own life now, his own problems. He'd married, divorced, struggled with his own demons. The Woolworth curse passed down another generation. Barbara saw herself in him, the same pain. The same futile search for something money couldn't buy. It broke her heart. Again. Always again. The pills helped suppress the ghosts. Enough chemicals in her system and the past became fuzzy, dreamlike, less sharp. She could pretend her mother was just sleeping, that her marriages were merely unfortunate, that her son would come back someday. The pills were merciful liars, and Barbara needed their lies to survive. But the pills created their own ghosts, moments she couldn't remember, in days that vanished, conversations she had no recollection of, people who claimed she'd promised them things. Had she? She didn't know. The chemical fog obscured reality. Past and present blurred together. Sometimes she'd wake up unsure of which husband she was married to, which house she was in, what year it was. Her staff found her talking to empty rooms, arguing with people who weren't there, apologizing to ghosts. They'd guide her back to bed, call doctors, increase supervision. But what could anyone do? Barbara was haunted by a life she couldn't escape, trapped between the past she regretted and the present she couldn't bear. The financial ghosts were equally persistent. Money she'd given away haunted her. 20 million on marriages, 5 million on jewelry for friends, 3 million on houses for acquaintances. Every dollar was a ghost, a reminder of her desperate attempt to buy love. She'd lie awake adding up the costs, calculating what she'd spent, what it had bought her. Nothing. Always nothing. Her trustees presented her with reports, charts showing the decline. The Woolworth fortune was nearly gone. At the current rate of spending, she'd be broke within a decade. They begged her to stop, to conserve, to save something for her later years. Barbara would look at the numbers and feel nothing. Later years? What later years? She was already old, already dying. What difference did it make? The ghosts whispered that she deserved this, deserved the loneliness, the addiction, the slow dissolution of everything her grandfather had built. She was proof that the American dream was a lie. that you could have everything and be nothing, that wealth was a curse disguised as a blessing. The ghosts were right. She knew they were right. And that knowledge was the cruelest ghost of all. Surrounded by the ghosts of everyone she'd lost, everything she'd wasted, and every choice she couldn't undo, Barbara Hutton walked through her palace like a specter herself, not quite alive, not quite dead, just existing in the space between. Haunted, haunting, a ghost story in expensive clothes. Chapter 9, The Reckoning. The moment Barbara realized that no amount of wealth could save her was a turning point she could never recover from. 1973. Barbara Hutton sat in her hotel suite at the Beverly Wilshire. She was 61 years old. She weighed 76 pounds. Her fortune had dwindled to less than $3.5 million. 62 million gone, spent, wasted, vanished into the void of her need. The reckoning came quietly. No dramatic moment, no sudden revelation. Just a slow, awful understanding that settled over her like frost. She was dying. Not someday. Soon. Her heart was failing. Her organs shutting down. Decades of starvation and pills had destroyed her body from the inside. The doctors gave her months, maybe a year, if she changed everything. She wouldn't change. She couldn't. Barbara looked around her suite. Hotel rooms had become her home. She couldn't maintain the palaces anymore, couldn't afford the staff, couldn't bear the emptiness of those vast spaces. Hotels were better, anonymous, transient. You could pretend you were just passing through, not ending, just pausing. The Beverly Wilshire charged her $3,000 a month for the suite, a fraction of what she used to spend on a single party. But now it strained her finances. Her trustees managed what remained, doled out allowances, tried to make the money last. She was on a budget. Barbara Hutton, the woman who'd once spent $40,000 on a birthday cake, now counting pennies. She thought about her grandfather, Frank Woolworth, the man who'd built an empire from nothing, started with a single 5 and dime store, grew it into a chain that spanned the country, and died with a fortune worth $65 million. 3 generations. That's all it took. One to build it, one to maintain it, one to destroy it. Barbara was the destroyer, the end of the line. The Woolworth fortune would die with her. What would Frank think if he could see her now? His granddaughter, skeletal, addicted, broke. Would he be disappointed, angry? Or would he understand that the money he'd worked so hard to accumulate was the very thing that had poisoned his line? The fortune was a curse. It had killed her mother, ruined her father, destroyed her, and it would haunt her son for the rest of his life. Lance visited that year, a rare occurrence. He sat across from her in the hotel suite. Mother and son, strangers connected by blood and money and trauma. They talked about nothing important, the weather, his travels, small talk to fill the void. What could they say? The real conversations had never happened. Too late now. Barbara looked at her son and saw herself. The same pain in his eyes. The same search for something that didn't exist. Lance had inherited the curse without the fortune. All the damage, none of the wealth. She wanted to apologize, wanted to explain that she'd tried, that she'd loved him as best she could, that her failure as a mother wasn't from lack of caring, but from lack of capacity. But the words stuck in her throat. She said nothing. He left. The hotel staff was kind. It's kinder than they needed to be. They'd seen her decline over the months, watched her waste away. They'd bring her meals she wouldn't eat, check on her throughout the day, call doctors when she seemed particularly weak. They weren't paid to care. They just did. It confused Barbara. Why would they care? She had nothing to give them, nothing left to buy their affection. And yet, they were gentle, patient, present. Maybe that was the cruelest revelation. The thing she'd spent 61 years and $62 million trying to buy had been available all along. For free. Genuine human compassion didn't have a price tag. It couldn't be purchased, only received. And Barbara had never learned how to receive, only how to pay. She thought about her 7 husbands, all those men she'd married, all that money she'd spent, trying to buy love, trying to purchase permanence. Not one of them loved her. She knew that now. Knew it then, probably. But admitting it would have meant admitting that she was fundamentally unlovable. That the fortune which was supposed to make her desirable made her untouchable instead. The pills sat on her nightstand, rows of bottles, her constant companions. She took them mechanically now, not for relief, just for maintenance, keeping the body functioning, keeping the pain at bay, keeping herself on this side of death for one more day. Why? What was she waiting for? The answer was simple and heartbreaking. She was waiting for someone to come, someone to care that she was dying. No one came. In lucid moments, Barbara understood the entirety of her tragedy. She'd been given everything, born into wealth that most people couldn't imagine. And she'd used it all wrong, spent it chasing ghosts, buying substitutes for the things that mattered. Love, connection, purpose, meaning. You can't purchase those things. She knew that now. The knowledge came too late. Knowledge always comes too late. The reckoning wasn't dramatic. No tears, no grand statements, just quiet acceptance. She'd wasted it all. The fortune, the opportunities, the life. She'd had every advantage and squandered them all. And now, at the end, sitting in a hotel room she could barely afford, weighing less than most children, her body shutting down, her mind foggy with chemicals, Barbara Hutton finally understood. Wealth couldn't save her. It never could. It had been the thing drowning her all along. Chapter 10. The Tragic End. Dying alone in a hotel room, Barbara Hutton's tragic end was as lonely as it was inevitable. May 11th, 1979. Barbara Hutton died at the age of 66. The location was fitting, the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. Not a palace, not a mansion, a hotel room, temporary, impersonal, anonymous. The place where one of the richest women in American history took her last breath. She'd been unconscious for days. Heart failure, organ shutdown. Her body had finally given up the fight it had been losing for decades. Nurses attended her, paid professionals. No family at her bedside. No friends holding her hand. Just hired help doing their job, waiting for the inevitable. The death certificate listed the cause as myocardial infarction, heart attack. But the real cause was more complex. Decades of anorexia, years of drug addiction, 7 failed marriages, a lifetime of loneliness. You can't list those things on official documents, but they killed her just as surely as the heart failure. Her estate was worth $3.5 million, a fortune to most people, a rounding error compared to what she'd inherited. $62 million spent over 66 years, almost $1 million per year, burned through in a desperate attempt to buy happiness. The final accounting was brutal. Every dollar spent, every relationship purchased, every gift given. And she died exactly as alone as if she'd been penniless. Lance inherited what remained, her son, her only child, the boy she'd tried to love but couldn't reach. He took the money without ceremony. There was no tearful acknowledgement of her life, no public mourning. Barbara Hutton died the way she'd lived, quietly, desperately, invisibly, despite her fame. The funeral was small, a handful of people, some distant relatives, a few former servants, curiosity seekers who'd read about her in the papers. The woman who'd once thrown parties for 300 guests was buried with barely a dozen witnesses. The society columns that had once breathlessly chronicled her every move gave her death a few paragraphs. "Poor little rich girl dies alone." The headline wrote itself. She was buried in the Woolworth family mausoleum, Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, alongside her grandfather Frank, the man who'd built the fortune, next to her mother Edna, the woman who'd jumped rather than live with the wealth. 3 generations of Woolworths, builder, victim, destroyer, united in death, separated by everything in life. The grave is simple, a marble marker, her name, her dates, no epitaph. What would it say? "Here lies Barbara Hutton. She had everything and nothing. She bought love and died alone. Too honest for a gravestone." The marble remains blank, a fitting monument to a life that meant nothing despite meaning everything it should have. The hotel staff at the Beverly Wilshire spoke kindly of her after her death. She was gentle, they said, sad, broken. They'd watched her fade away over the years, seen her struggle. They felt sorry for her, not because she was rich, because she was human. And humans aren't meant to live the way Barbara lived, isolated, addicted, abandoned. The money didn't make her special. The loneliness made her tragic. Her possessions were dispersed. What little remained, some jewelry sold at auction, the pearls that survived decades of giving away, the diamonds she'd kept. Collectors bought them, displayed them in cases. The jewels outlasted the woman. They always do. Objects endure. People fade. Barbara's flesh turned to dust, while the emeralds she wore still sparkle in museum displays. The palaces she'd owned were sold. The Tangier estate, the Paris apartment, the Mexico City mansion. New owners moved in, renovated, erased the traces of Barbara's presence. Within years, no one could tell that the poor little rich girl had ever walked those halls. The walls didn't remember, the rooms didn't care. She was gone, replaced, forgotten. Her story should have ended there. Woman born rich, woman dies poor, tale as old as time. But Barbara's death resonated. The newspapers ran retrospectives. The magazines published features. Who was Barbara Hutton? What went wrong? How does someone with everything end up with nothing? The questions lingered. The answers remained elusive because the truth was uncomfortable. Barbara Hutton proved that the American dream had a dark side, that wealth didn't guarantee happiness, that privilege could be a prison, that having everything materially could mean having nothing spiritually. Her death forced people to confront the lie they'd been sold. Money equals success. Wealth equals happiness. Barbara spent 66 years and $62 million proving that lie wrong. In the end, she died as she'd lived, alone, despite the fortune, despite the fame, despite the desperate attempts to buy connection. The loneliness that had defined her life claimed her death too. The Beverly Wilshire hotel room, the absent family, the hired nurses, the quiet passing, a perfect, terrible symmetry. Barbara Hutton was born into isolation and died in it. The money changed nothing. It only made the loneliness more expensive. Chapter 11. The Cost of a Life Unlived. But Barbara Hutton's story is a painful reminder that wealth alone is never enough to heal the wounds of the heart. What was the cost? Not in dollars. We know that number, $62 million. But what did Barbara really lose? What did the fortune steal from her that couldn't be calculated in currency? She lost her childhood. Most children have the luxury of innocence, of play, of growing up slowly. Barbara never had that. From the moment her mother died, she was the Woolworth Heiress, a financial entity before she was a person. Every decision made about her was filtered through the money. Where she lived, who she saw, who she could trust. The fortune made childhood impossible. She lost the ability to trust. Every person who approached her wanted something. From her earliest memories, Barbara learned that affection was transactional. People smiled because of what she could give them, not because of who she was. That lesson, learned young and reinforced constantly, destroyed her ability to form genuine bonds. How do you trust when everyone has a motive? How do you open your heart when every opening has been exploited? She lost her body. The anorexia started as control, morphed into punishment, became a slow suicide. By the end, Barbara weighed less than 80 pounds. Her body had been consumed, eaten away by the need to control something, anything. The fortune controlled everything else. Her body was the only territory she could govern. So she governed it into dust. She lost the possibility of motherhood. Lance was her only child. The pregnancy was difficult, the birth traumatic. Doctors said no more children. But even if she could have had more, what would have changed? She couldn't mother the child she had. The patterns were too ingrained, the damage too deep. Lance grew up as isolated as his mother. The wealth ensured it. Another generation poisoned by privilege. She lost time, 66 years, most of them miserable. She tried to fill the hours with purchases, parties, travel, pills. But time spent running from yourself isn't really lived. It's endured. Barbara endured her life, survived it. She didn't live it. What would she have been without the money? We'll never know. The fortune made sure of that. The broader implications extend beyond one woman's tragedy. Barbara's life was an extreme example of a common problem. Inherited wealth damages. Not always, not inevitably, but often. When children are given too much too young, when their identity becomes inseparable from their fortune, when they're raised by trustees instead of parents, something breaks. The development that happens through struggle, through earning, through failing and trying again, that doesn't happen. You end up with adults who have resources but no resilience, money but no meaning. Barbara's story also reveals the lie of materialism. Society says money solves problems, buys happiness, provides security. Barbara had more money than most people could spend in 10 lifetimes, and it solved nothing, bought nothing that mattered, provided no security at all. She died terrified, alone, broken. The fortune that was supposed to protect her was the thing that destroyed her. The psychological cost is incalculable. The trauma of her mother's suicide, the neglect of her father, the exploitation by her husbands, the commodification of every relationship, the constant awareness that people wanted her money, and not her. That's not quantifiable. You can't put a number on that kind of damage. You can only observe its effects. The addiction, the eating disorder, The inability to connect, the desperate spending, the lonely death. What could have saved her? Love. Real, unconditional love. But how does someone born into a fortune access that? Everyone around her was contaminated by the money. Even those who cared were aware of it. Servants were paid. Friends received gifts. Husbands got settlements. There was no relationship untouched by the Woolworth millions. So love became impossible, or rather, indistinguishable from performance. And Barbara couldn't tell the difference. She needed therapy, modern, intensive, long-term psychological help. But this was the 1930s, 40s, 50s. Psychology was primitive, mental health stigmatized. Rich women were sent to rest cures, not given real treatment. By the time the tools existed to help her, Barbara was too far gone, too addicted, too damaged, too tired. The cost of her life unlived echoes beyond her grave. Lance struggled his entire life, married, divorced, fought his own demons. The wealth that destroyed his mother damaged him too. Different manifestations, same source. The curse continued. How far down the generations will it go? How long does inherited trauma last? The Woolworth fortune is gone, but the damage remains. Barbara's life asks uncomfortable questions. Is wealth worth the cost? Should we envy the rich or pity them? What's the price of privilege? The answers aren't simple. Barbara's tragedy doesn't mean all wealth is destructive, but it does prove that wealth alone is not enough. That having everything materially can coincide with having nothing emotionally. That the gap between rich and happy is wider than anyone wants to admit. In the end, the cost of Barbara's unlived life was everything. Her health, her relationships, her happiness, her potential, herself. The fortune was supposed to give her opportunities. Instead, it gave her a prison. Beautiful, luxurious, inescapable. She died inside it, never knowing what life could have been beyond the golden bars. Chapter 12, The Lasting Legacy. In the end, Barbara's inheritance didn't just destroy her, it served as a warning to all who would follow. Barbara Hutton's legacy is complicated. On the surface, she left nothing. The fortune is gone, the palace is sold, the jewelry scattered. Her only child died in 1972, 7 years before her. A plane crash, sudden, tragic. The Woolworth line ended with her. No grandchildren to inherit what remained, no descendants to carry on the name. The dynasty her grandfather built died in a hotel room at the Beverly Wilshire. But Barbara left something more valuable than money. She left a warning. Her life became a cautionary tale. A story told to rich children about the dangers of waste, to heiresses about the perils of bad marriages. To anyone who believes that money solves all problems. Look at Barbara Hutton, they say. She had everything, and it destroyed her. The warning is specific. Inherited wealth is different from earned wealth. When you build a fortune yourself, you develop skills, resilience, judgment, the ability to handle success and failure. When you inherit a fortune, you get the money without the development. You're given power without earning wisdom. Barbara never had a chance to learn who she was, separate from her wealth. The fortune defined her before she could define herself. Her marriages serve as case studies in exploitation. 7 times she tried to buy love. 7 times she failed. Each husband was a variation on the same theme. Men who wanted her money and performed affection to get it. The amounts they extracted were staggering. over $20 million in settlements alone, not including the gifts, the allowances, the daily expenses of keeping them happy. Barbara funded their lives and called it love. The lesson is clear. When you have great wealth, you cannot trust easily. Every relationship is suspect. Every kindness might be calculated. This doesn't mean all people are mercenary, but it means you can't tell who is genuine and who is performing. Barbara couldn't tell. She wanted to believe in love so badly that she ignored every red flag, and she paid for that willingness with her fortune and her heart. Her addiction tells another story. The pills started as medicine, became coping mechanisms, ended as suicide in slow motion. Barbara used drugs to numb the pain of her life, to escape the loneliness, to silence the voices that told her she was worthless beyond her wealth. The addiction was progressive, predictable, fatal, and no one stopped her because no one could. When you're rich enough, you can always find a doctor who'll prescribe what you want. You can always find enablers. Wealth makes addiction easier to maintain and harder to treat. The eating disorder was control. Barbara controlled nothing in her life, not her childhood, not her relationships, not her public image. But she could control her body. Starvation was power, the only power she had. It's a common pattern among people who feel powerless in other areas. The body becomes the battlefield. Barbara fought herself for 60 years and lost. Her story influenced how we think about wealth and happiness. Before Barbara, the narrative was simple. Rich people have it easy. They're lucky, blessed. After Barbara, the narrative became more nuanced. Maybe money creates as many problems as it solves. Maybe privilege is a burden. Maybe we shouldn't envy the rich. Maybe we should pity them. Barbara's tragedy humanized the wealthy in a way that made people uncomfortable. Because if money doesn't buy happiness, what does? The media's treatment of Barbara also set precedents. She was one of the first celebrities to have her entire life documented, from birth to death. Every marriage, every scandal, every pound lost. The press was relentless, invasive, cruel. They called her the poor little rich girl. The title was mocking, dismissive, as if her pain was less valid because she had money, as if wealth negated suffering. Barbara's relationship with the media foreshadowed modern celebrity culture. The constant scrutiny, the lack of privacy, the public's insatiable appetite for the details of famous lives. Today, Barbara Hutton is mostly forgotten. Younger generations don't know her name. The Woolworth stores are gone, the fortune dispersed. She's a footnote in history books, a paragraph in articles about American dynasties. But those who study wealth, inheritance, and family dynamics know her story. She's referenced in psychology papers about inherited trauma, in economics papers about wealth dissipation, in social studies about class and privilege. Her grave in Woodlawn Cemetery is rarely visited. No flowers appear on birthdays. No mourners mark the anniversary of her death. She lies next to her grandfather and her mother, the three Woolworths, united in death, the builder, the suicide, the destroyer, a complete arc in 3 generations, from nothing to everything to nothing again. The lasting question Barbara's life poses is this: what is the point of wealth? If it doesn't bring happiness, if it doesn't ensure love, if it can't provide meaning or purpose or peace, what's it for? Barbara had $62 million and ended up with nothing that mattered. She had the resources to do anything, and she did nothing of value. No charity work that changed lives, no patronage that advanced art, no legacy beyond cautionary tale. Maybe that's the real legacy. Barbara Hutton proved that wealth without wisdom is worthless, that privilege without purpose is poisonous, that you can have everything the world says matters and still die alone in a hotel room, weighing 76 pounds, mourned by no one who truly knew you. She lived and died as a warning, a reminder that the things money can buy are not the things that make life worth living. The Woolworth fortune is gone, but the lesson remains. Wealth is not success. Rich is not happy. Having everything materially can mean having nothing spiritually. Barbara Hutton spent her entire life proving that truth. She paid $62 million and 66 years to teach us what we should already know. Money cannot buy love, cannot purchase meaning, cannot fill the void inside a human heart, and no amount of privilege can protect you from yourself. That's the legacy of Barbara Hutton. Not a fortune, not a family dynasty, just a truth. Painful, uncomfortable, essential. She had everything, and it was never enough. She died alone. And in her solitude, she left behind the most valuable thing she ever possessed. A warning to those who would follow. Don't make the same mistakes. Don't confuse wealth with worth. Don't spend your life chasing things that money can buy. Because in the end, none of it matters. And you'll die just as alone as the poor little rich girl who had it all and lost everything that counted.